Look Back is finally here. Yes, Look Back, the movie, is finally available on streaming platforms. So thankfully, people like myself and many other people that did not have theaters nearby that had the movie showing can finally watch it. And there was a massive amount of hype for this movie, so I was extremely excited for it. We had people in my own community that were really enjoying the movie. We have a lot of people that are obviously massive fans of the original creator of the manga, which of course is the creator behind Chainsaw Man. We're massively excited for it. People love the manga. There's hype everywhere. I'm just seeing hype everywhere. So it was really exciting to finally be able to watch it. And after watching the movie, it was okay. And that's where we have a problem. Of course, a movie that is this anticipated, that has this much hype behind it, and people love it that much, when I watch the movie and I think it's just okay, as a content creator, that's a little bit of a struggle. Because I think that a lot of people expect that if a lot of people enjoy something, you're supposed to enjoy it, and thus you have to rant and rave about it. Now, don't get me wrong. I thought the first half of this movie was really, really good. It does a great job of portraying the idea of finding inspiration through some sort of means of rivalry and thus camaraderie. All that stuff I love. I literally felt like I was the character watching the movie. I felt everything that they felt. And it was very, very beautifully portrayed. The music is so freaking good. The music drives it. It does a fantastic job of doing show, don't tell. There's so much about this movie that I really, really love. But in the end, after watching the entire movie, I thought it was okay. And that was really counter to what I was seeing a lot of people saying. So I thought there was something wrong with me. I honestly, when I finished the movie, I looked at all the ratings, I'm looking at a lot of people, what they're saying, and I really felt like, what am I missing? What am I missing in this that makes this show a 10 out of 10? Incredible, groundbreaking, all this stuff. What am I missing? So I went on a journey. And that's what we're going to get into with this video. I really feel like this video, rather than it being a formally set out review where I go through each step by step, I really want to talk about my journey through Look Back. What I found, what I looked into, and ultimately my conclusions for the actual movie. What I felt in the end after my long journey. Because this is a multi-step thing here. After watching the movie, again, seeing how people are just absolutely ranting and raving about it, going to check out the manga to see if maybe there's something that I can connect to more in the manga itself. Maybe I missed something. And then ultimately going back to watching the movie a second time. And honestly, I think my journey did kind of change my perspective on the movie. Not so much that it makes me think that it's amazing in the end, but really kind of just change my perspective and give me a little more context as to why people love it so much. I think Look Back kind of falls in different categories for people. There's relatability in the characters themselves, having that almost feel of nostalgia. Like, yeah, I remember back when I was with my friend and we did this and we drew this, but then we grew up. Because this is a coming-of-age story. This is a story about people finding love in something and enjoying it together and just having a blast, but then at some point, life happens. There's a lot in here about loss and regret that a lot of people are going to relate to. There's also people that are massive fans of the original creator and really feel like the creator is literally talking to them and telling them I'm hurting. There's also references to real-life events that a lot of people are attaching to. It really does feel like this creation is almost like a message from Fujimoto himself, the original creator, saying this is what I'm feeling right now, this is the pain I'm feeling, and this is what I'm going through. And I won't get into great details on exactly that kind of stuff until the later part of this video. I don't want to spoil the movie for a lot of people, but we'll get into that when we get into it. So what is Look Back about? Let's talk about what is Look Back about. Look Back follows Fujino when she's in school. She's doing a comic strip for their newspaper for the school itself, and every single time the newspaper comes out, everybody's like, my gosh, Fujino, you're so funny. Your art is so fantastic. They even have clips showing like people in the neighborhood and whatnot just going, my gosh, Fujino, you could become a manga artist. You're so great. Your art is so fantastic. Well, one time the teacher asked, hey, can this one student that's in another class that's actually a recluse that, doesn't come to school, can they do one of these comic strips? Can they make one of these panels for one of the weeks? And she's like, yeah, sure, fine, that's fine. I don't know they're going to be able to do it well, but sure, go ahead and let them do it. Well, come time for the next newspaper to come in, the art is fantastic. Amazing shots of scenic views, buildings and whatnot, just great detail and everything. And this punches Fujino in the gut because now everybody's saying, man, compared to your art's not that great. And this changes Fujino, decides to go home and immediately start poring over how to get better at drawing. Just poring over how-to videos, checking the internet, drawing nonstop to get better. And ultimately, in the end, once they have another newspaper, they're still beat. Fujino is still feeling like they're inadequate compared to this other person. Well, this makes them finally stop. I just don't want to really draw anymore. Don't really care anymore. What's the point? I'll never be that good. and just stops completely. They go off and do other stuff, get into karate, just continue with school, hanging out with friends, just completely leaving art behind. Until their graduation, at which point the teacher asks Fujino, hey, can you take this diploma to Kiyomoto, the person that does those drawings? When she arrives at Kiyomoto's house, nobody answers. She kind of goes inside the, entryway and says, hey, I'm leaving this right here. But then hears a noise, goes around the corner, ends up spotting just stacks upon stacks upon stacks of sketchbooks. After seeing like a little 4-comma strip, she decides to draw something on there. It accidentally falls underneath the door, and that's when she goes to rush out the door, and Kiyomoto chases after her and says, hey, Fujino, I really love your art. I really love your comic strips. You're like the best, Fujino sensei. You are my inspiration. You helped me through so much stuff. Thank you so much. You're so incredible. But why did you stop? I looked forward to the newspaper every single time. Why did you stop? And that's when Fujino decides to tell a lie. Oh, I just put it on hold until I could, create a manuscript for a competition. And she's like, okay, can I see it, please? Can you let me see it? And this kind of triggers Fujino to get back into art again. Somebody that obviously beat them in her mind when it comes to art really loved her work. So it kind of bolstered her again and makes her decide to get back into art again. And basically what follows this is the two of them getting together and actually working on this manga that'll eventually go into this competition. That's about as far as I'm going to get into the story for it. It's really them on their journey, kind of a coming of age story, growing up and getting into manga creation. And like I said before, this beginning half is absolutely incredible. Absolutely loved it. It really does a great job of, like I said, show don't tell. It shows the character as they're getting into art itself, the struggles they have, the competitiveness, what kind of inspires you. I think the earlier segment, what's so good in here is every single feeling that Fujino has, I've had at some point. This is that relatability that kind of kicks into you. That idea that Fujino herself, early on, just wants to do something to be popular, wants to do something because it gets her attention. Yeah, every time she draws, she actually puts a lot of work into it. She claims that, oh, I just threw it together just to make it kind of seem like they did a more incredible feat than they actually did, even though they poured over that drawing and trying to figure out the story for, days on end. No, I just threw it together. And everybody's like, man, you're so incredible. You could be a mangaka. You could be a manga artist. You're so incredible. It's all to feed into her ego. She just wants people to think she's incredible. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah, I just threw it together. And I've had that feeling before. That realization at some point that the only reason you're doing something is for that drip. You're doing it for that drip of gratification. That you did something incredible and everybody loves it, so you gotta make the next one. I gotta make the next one in order for everybody to appreciate me. I need to get that fuel. Fuel my ego. Tell me I did an incredible job. But then when we have Kiyomoto come in the picture, it transitions that desire into now I have to defeat this person. I've lost my ego trip. Everybody's going to this person. I need to get it back. Even though I'm acting like I don't care about this thing, I like this. I've been fed this so long, I need it. I need that ego trip. I need to beat this person. But ultimately, when she fails to impress and to overcome her rival, it suddenly becomes a realization point, I think, that a lot of people have. When they're into something for the wrong reasons, they realize at some point how fickle it is. And that's what I really love about this. It's really well shown how the idea that the moment that she realized she can't beat Kiyomoto, what does it matter? Did I ever really ever like what I had? I think that's what really hits me personally. That idea of, did I really ever care about this thing? Did I actually like drawing? Did I actually love this? Or did I just care about other people giving my ego feel? That's all I cared about, because now that I no longer have it, now that everybody's looking at this other person, I just give up that easily. She just gives it up, just puts the pen down. Hey, let's go hang out. If it was that easy, then you never really cared about it to begin with. She never really cared about it to begin with. She just wanted to beat that person. And when she realized she couldn't, she gave up. It's so easy to get wrapped up in that. It's so easy to get wrapped up in that I need to beat somebody else. I need to get more views than this other person. I need to get more likes than this other person. I need more attention than this person. I need a bigger crowd than this person. I need more followers than this person. And I can't seem to get that until eventually you realize, even if you do get it, you finally realize that in the end, it's not that important. I'm not really enjoying this. I'm just chasing the likes. I'm just chasing the ego. It's a gut punch. It's a realization. And I really like how they portrayed it here. But that all spins into the last one. That final kick that really kind of kicks up the movie itself and the story of Fujino. And that realization moment of just how much effort Kiyomoto was putting into. I just loved the shot of Fujino walking into that house. She walks around that corner of the house. And what popped in my head immediately was never downplay somebody's efforts. Like, I literally said it out loud. When that girl walked around that corner, I'm like, don't downplay somebody else's efforts. There's almost a sense here that Fujino thinks that if I just pour over the sketchbooks, if I just keep drawing a bunch, I can beat that person. I could beat that person. She was even giving excuses to why Kyomoto was doing so well. Well, she never has to come to school. So obviously, she draws better. And then she comes around that corner. It's almost like a don't downplay Kyomoto's efforts. Look at her work. Look at how hard she worked. But it really kind of turns into, of course, Kyomoto chasing after her and is having that moment where suddenly Kyomoto's like, hey, I loved your stuff. You inspired me. You got me through so much stuff. And it bolsters that ego again. Suddenly that whoosh into Fujino of, once again, ego. It's almost like I defeated him too. Like, I've been worried so much about Kyomoto beating me, but I essentially beat Kyomoto because Kyomoto looks up to me. Puff up, puff up, puff up. But again, this all turns into like the bigger story here, which is really Fujino and Kyomoto no longer being rivals, no longer trying to fight each other. At least Fujino was trying to fight her, but turning it into suddenly now I have a reason for drawing. This is that creation finally of a legitimate reason why Fujino wants to draw is because she wants to draw with Kyomoto. They have so much fun together. They become a team, which yes, ultimately later on the story turns into a massive story beat in the idea of possibly forgetting that as you get older. I think that's the bigger core aspect of the later story amongst other things that we won't get into yet. But yeah, that shot of Fujino just rushing out, being super dorky, being super happy, ego just inflating to no end and just being super happy. That shot, which we can get into visuals, that shot of the visuals coming into there was so incredible. But overall, like I said, this beginning half was so well put together. It's so beautifully portrayed. It's so much show don't tell. And the music is absolutely incredible. This is where I get a lot of relatability in the journey of these characters and getting into art, getting into what inspires a person, getting into rivalries, wanting to feel like you can overcome somebody. That feeling of jealousy, that somebody is more successful than you. That jealousy that you're like, I wish I can be that good. I cannot get that good. You keep pouring over things and trying to get better and better. And ultimately you realize you're not getting better than them. It's easy to feel defeated in that moment. And I felt so bad for Fujino. As much as I acknowledge the fact that she's ego-driven, I'm heartbroken because I feel that same sense of, why can't I get this good? Why can't my stuff be this good? Why can't I get those oohs and ahs that other people do? I feel like I'm putting so much effort in this, and I'm not getting that attention. Why can't I get that attention? That realization at some point smacks you in the face of, are you even enjoying what you're doing? Are you even enjoying this? Are you doing this art for the right reason? Do you even have a passion for this? Why are you even bothering if you don't enjoy what you're doing? That's so much in Fujino that I absolutely relate to, and it just hit me in the gut. And before we get into the second half, visually, like I said, so beautiful. It wasn't until I checked out the manga that I realized just how much effort this team put into this. This is not just a one-for-one adaptation. It hits all the story beats. It does a perfect job of doing the story, the dialogue, everything's there. What really blew me away was after watching the movie and checking the manga, just how many extra shots and just how much in between each panel they put. There's so much storytelling they're adding to it. There's so much emotion they're adding to it. And yes, having the music with it, which is absolutely incredible, to giving those senses of like that joy that's rushing through Fujino after Kyomoto says that, my sensei, that joy of running through those fields and that beautiful pan down shot coming up behind Fujino. That's just probably the best pan shot that I've ever seen hand drawn ever. So beautifully done. And in addition, just added context that's sort of being given to it. There's one specific one that stood out to me so much. And this is sort of touching into that second half of the movie where you have Fujino and Kyomoto and they're just making different manga and it's jumping to each different location. They're showing like, okay, now they're on the beach and they're having fun on the beach and then suddenly they make a manga about being on the beach. But there's this one moment, it's a perspective shot where Kyomoto is holding on to Fujino's hand as Fujino's running and looking back at her and they're laughing and having fun. She's kind of dragging her along. But at some point she lets go of Fujino's hand. And it's just before this turning point of the story itself, which gives you an indication that Kyomoto can't keep up. She's losing her grip on Fujino, and it's something that was not in the manga. It's giving you a sense of what's to come. Kyomoto is feeling like she can't keep up, and it's so well put in there. I think it adds a little context there that I think was, set up to something that makes perfect sense. Add into the fact that it really does feel like the director just knows this creator. There's so many references. And I've seen a lot of people that love this movie was just because of that. There's a lot of references in there. I mean, yes, there's a million Chainsaw Man references in this damn thing. But there's so much in here that are references to things. And I think a lot of people love those references. There's just a sense of pop culture references in there as well, which was kind of present in the anime adaptation of Chainsaw Man 2. So this is kind of par for the course here. But it does feel like this team and the director and everybody really did know this creator. And they wanted to put that passion into it. And again, overall, I think compared to the manga, the adaptation here was just so beautifully done. Again, music, directing, animation, everything. Now, I'll admit, I'm not a fan of the style, and that's fine. I know that it is true to the manga. It is definitely capturing the creator's style, which is very unique, but I'm not a huge fan of that style. I find at some point, especially when the characters get emotional, it kind of borderlines into cartoonish, and it kind of ruins some of the scenes for me. But again, it's a taste thing. I'm not a massive fan of it. It doesn't ruin the movie for me. Don't get me wrong. I'm just not a fan of it. Anyways, with all that said, let's get into the second half, because I think this is where I'm extremely mixed. And I think what it kind of in the end is what sort of brings it down for me a little bit, where I see possibly what the creator was doing for this, but at the same time, I also kind of struggle with, do I think it makes a good story on its own? So yes, spoiler alerts for everybody. After this point, we're going into full-on spoilers for the ending, and you have been fully warned. I'm not going to dance around the subject here going forward. But yes, the second half of this, like I said, is really kind of coming into that coming-of-age story. And the idea of the two of them growing up, they got their first manga that's going to be serialized. Fujino's extremely excited. But like I said before, that idea of getting into Kiyomoto feeling like she's being left behind. She can't keep up with Fujino, and I have to get better myself. I got to get better with my background art. I'm going to go to art school. And yes, it upsets Fujino. I think the scene where they have that split felt a little bit off for me, but it was fine. Like having Fujino just get angry. It makes sense why she's angry. It just felt a little off. That scene felt a little bit off. But yes, it goes into Fujino going into work, and she's making a manga. It's super successful, and Kiyomoto's over here, and she's trying to get better at her art until eventually we kind of forget about Kiyomoto. It almost feels like it just kind of goes solo with Fujino, and Fujino's kind of doing her own thing, and she's becoming successful, and then at some point that news broadcast happens. Now, yes, I've seen a lot of people point out the fact that the manga came out 2 years after Kyoto Animation had the arson attack. And there is a lot of speculation. It seems pretty obvious to me. Like, it's hard to not get that this is on purpose. That this was obviously created, or at least published, on the second anniversary of this arson attack. And in that one-shot manga, it has this point in which it broadcasts that somebody believing that somebody was plagiarizing their work attacks a facility. It seems pretty on the nose. Which, yes, does get into what a lot of people believe, is that this was something that was possibly created in response to that arson attack. That this might be Fujimoto's desire to sort of send a message about their feelings about the situation. Which I think does, after looking into this afterwards, like I said, without context, I felt it could have been a possibility. But with context, this second half starts to make more sense to me. And this is where I think my journey through reading the manga and watching the movie again and looking at what people were saying about this really did change my perspective of it. Which is sad, because my original watching of the movie, this didn't really hit that hard. But now that I know the context, it makes much more sense to me. What I feel like Fujimoto is saying here, again, assuming, and it seems pretty obvious, that this was created in response to the arson attack. It's almost like him saying, now that Kiyomoto goes off, does the art school, ends up being killed by this person, and then at some point Fujino is feeling like she's at fault, and she feels regret for ever pulling Kiyomoto out of there, and that almost loss of desire to even draw, and then eventually recalling what she left behind. Because this is a story about Fujino essentially leaving Kiyomoto behind, going off and becoming a mangaka, and at some point getting into the business of being a mangaka, and then at some point realizing what the original reason why she enjoyed drawing. Again, the very beginning is her doing it for ego. She does it for ego. Then at some point she meets Kiyomoto, and then she starts doing it because she enjoys drawing with Kiyomoto. But then she forgets that the moment that she separates with Kiyomoto. And now she's doing it for ego again. That's why it keeps showing that stupid chart going up and down, up and down, up and down. Ego, 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 ego. And at some point when Kiyomoto's dead, suddenly she goes, That's right, I forgot. I did this because I had fun with Kyomoto. That was why I enjoyed the art. That was why I was drawing. And I forgot that. But yes, also the massive regret for even pulling Kyomoto out of there. She could have still been alive. But again, getting back to Fujimoto's desire to release this on the second anniversary of the Kyoto Animation Studio attack does give me a sense that this is his way of expressing how he feels about the situation. That we all enjoy art together, and then suddenly out of nowhere, tragedy strikes. And it might make you feel like you've lost your second half. You've lost a part of your art. Somebody that was so passionate about art as much as you were is suddenly lost, but then still finding the desire to keep moving forward. And I think the bigger message that he's sort of portraying here regarding that is, of course, the parallel world, the what-if scenario. We have Fujino drop that little piece that says, don't come out, under the door, and then Kyomoto, in this alternate what-if reality, picks it up, doesn't get out, but still ends up at the same place. But now in this moment, Fujino's able to stop it. And I think a lot of people have that feeling of, I wish I could have stopped that. I wish I was there so I could have stopped that. So many talented people and beloved people were lost that day. I wish I could go back in time and stop that from happening. And Fujino probably has that desire, just like everybody else. I wish I could have been there to stop that from happening. I wish I had kept that person from getting in that car when they were a little bit tipsy. I wish I could have stopped them from going out. I wish I could have said something before they walked out that door. But it doesn't keep to that what-if scenario. There's almost a sense that as you're watching it, that is this going to be the story? Like, oh, it never actually happened and we're just going to move on? No, it goes right back to Fujino. It goes right back to the world where Kyomoto is dead. It's almost as if it's saying, you can't fix it. You can't undo it. But you can carry the baton on. And I think that in itself is a bittersweet and a very kind of inspiring message in the idea of, yes, we're always going to lose somebody. There's always going to be tragedies, unfortunately. But we could still kind of move forward. And I think that is a powerful message. I do appreciate the fact that in the end, Fujimoto kept to that message, didn't let that alternate reality actually happen. But it also expresses the idea that in the end, it would have happened either way. Don't fill your head with that idea of, I wish I could have stopped that, because in the end, it could have probably still happened. There's almost an inevitability that eventually tragedy will strike. Not that if she didn't meet Kyomoto to begin with, that she was going to survive, but more so that tragedy will happen one day, and it's better to just kind of keep moving forward. Don't be stuck in the past. Don't be overwhelmed by that. And yeah, some people have pointed out some messaging in the actual manga itself, and that the first page has don't, the title is look back, and at the very end, in anger. So there is like a message here as well of not living in anger. That even if you strike back, it doesn't change anything. Getting revenge doesn't change anything. That's something I can see in it as well, as a message. Like I said, my first watch through that second half, I felt it was predictable. Like from the very beginning, when she met Kyomoto, I'm like, yeah, Kyomoto's probably gonna be sick or something. This is gonna be a tragic friend story. Kyomoto's totally dead. Like that first encounter between Fujino and Kyomoto, I'm like, Kyomoto's dead. Like this is gonna be one of those stories where at some point they find they're having fun together, and then at some point Kyomoto dies, and she dies. And I'm like, yeah, they're doing the person dies thing. But it's not as if that ruined the movie for me. I think again, it's more so in the idea that I wasn't really sure how I felt about the what if scenario it kind of presented there. It hits. I've had loss in my life. It hits for that aspect alone, but I didn't really feel like it said enough. I didn't feel like it did enough. It didn't do anything that really made me go, oh wow, that's crazy. It kind of just happened. So I didn't really get much from the second half. Again, I think having the context as to when this is released, that does kind of give it a lot more impact for me, which I think, depending on how you look at it, is sort of a negative. In the end, like I said, this has been a journey for me. Looking back has been an absolute journey for me. Watching the movie the first time, really feeling a lot of relatability to Fujino as a character, having this little journey of the two of them together, which I thought was really sweet. That coming of age story, them growing up, getting stuck into the business world, how the business world just makes everything about turning out the next manga, the next manga, the next manga, making art turn into money making rather than it being about the joy of working together. And that's ultimately leading to the split of them. And the idea that one is still trying to look for the passion of getting better while the other one is just looking to turn out the next manga. And yes, ultimately getting to that what-if scenario that's kind of presented at the end of what if I'd never brought her out of there? She might still be alive, and would she have been happier? That's a massive question mark there. And again, I really do feel like after checking out the manga and looking at the movie again, I really do feel like the director and the team did a phenomenal job of adapting it, just putting so much extra context in there, making some beautiful animation set pieces that I've never really seen in a lot of other series. Even though I have my issues with a lot of the art style and artistic choice in there, here and there, it was a beautiful movie. And yes, like I said before, I'm going to say it again, the music. The music is absolutely phenomenal. All that stuff comes together to really kind of change my perspective on Look Back. I think the bigger message here really kind of being that what inspires you, and ultimately what can break you, how tragedies can befall us, and how you might not want to let that kind of change your perspective or change your joys in what you create. All this stuff is kind of a big message that I think in the end I come up with. And I hope you guys enjoyed my journey through Look Back. I know this video has probably turned out to be quite longer than I originally expected, but again, I think this is something that I did want to come into it and look at it with a different lens. When I watched it, just had a feeling of it was okay. And seeing the outpour of love that it has, it really did want me to examine it more, try to figure out what people are loving so much about this. And again, I think it's a culmination of relatability. I think it's just people loving the original creator and wanting to accept his message that he has in here. Obviously seeing there's a message in here, and they want to know what Fujimoto is feeling about the situation and really feeling together with him in his hurt with what happened with Kyoto Animation. And again, just the overall spectacle of the animation and the passion that this team put into it is all kind of mixed in there as well. But again, I hope you enjoyed my journey. If you did, hit the like button down below. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people that will hit dislike because they heard me say it's okay at the very beginning. They hit the dislike and they close the video. So hit the like button if you think that I at least portrayed my feelings of the movie very well with this video. But yes, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe before you leave. If you like this content, you want to support the channel more, I have links in the description below. Greatly appreciate what it does. Until next time, y'all take care.